Hey, before you watch this thing, hit subscribe, would you?
So I got this job on this radio station, which is where I met Ricky Gervais.
He hired you?
It was a new station that just launched. He had somehow persuaded them to let him be the head of speech. It was behind the scenes, and it was a made-up job, theoretically, to write funny little bits for the DJs.
You know what's funny? Like, you can absolutely picture Ricky talking them into it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, so I'll be
head of speech. But he immediately said, I'm going to need an assistant. And so I happened to have sent my resume in just looking for a job in radio, and he called me up, and we hit it off, and I became assistant to the head of speech. And we did that for a little while, and we kind of got to know each other.
Okay, this may help me segue in. So the idea of we can all picture Ricky talking them into, I'm the head of speech, and I'm going to need an assistant.
Yeah.
Here's a salary, whatever. So Ricky being, for all we know from the outside looking in, incredibly persuasive. Right? I mean, that would be my experience. That would probably be people's experience with Dave Chappelle as well. Right. What I'm saying is, they are very persuasive, but then someone like you or I, or specifically you and I, come along and go, no. Like, part of our job, we have enough confidence, even though we don't look like we have as much confidence as they do.
Yeah.
We have enough confidence. We have enough intellectual confidence or something to go, no, I don't agree.
That's right. And I think it's also about Ricky got this job on the station, but he was older and he'd sort of slightly drifted into it. He was obviously a super talented man, but he didn't have that driving, burning ambition that I think I had at a young age. And so I had a sort of, I thought, listen, he's probably going to get me fired. I went and joined the BBC instead. I got a job at the BBC behind the scenes. And that was where the opportunity to make a little short film, which became a sort of prototype of The Office, originated.
So you're at the BBC.
Yeah.
You're still friends with Ricky.
Still friends with Ricky.
And he's still the head of speech.
He's still the head of speech. And I would call him, and I was doing menial jobs at BBC, and I would phone him. He'd be like boating on Regent's Park Lake in the middle of the afternoon instead of working. And I'd be up in sort of northern England, trying to arrange a film about line dancing or something, and I'm like, what am I doing? I've made terrible
decisions. So you were
decisions.
Making like documentaries, basically?
No, I was making tiny little 3 or 4 minute segments for kind of daytime TV shows.
Okay.
And anyway, but they had to train you up to be a director, to direct these little 2 or 3 minute segments. And they said, listen, make a documentary about, make a 5-minute documentary about your neighborhood barber shop or your neighborhood car wash. And I said, can I make a fake one with my friend? And they went, fine, or whatever. So I called Rick and I was like, I had to do this training film. They give me a camera team for a day. Let's do something. And what we did became essentially The Office. And I would then walk around the BBC with this tape, taking it to executives, going, I know you don't know me, but can I show you this? And eventually they let us make the pilot.
What was the specific thing?
It was like 20 minutes. And I realized that if we shot it like a documentary style, we could just get a lot more footage in the can. And
was it about an office?
Yeah, it was the character. There'd been kind of ideas that Ricky and I had spitballed when we worked together, and he had some funny observations about kind of some office people he'd worked with. And so we just kind of pooled them together, and then he performed it, and that character just, was there sort of dormant.
Yeah.
In him.
Oh, he's Elaine. She left you yet? Yeah. All right, see you then. She has left him. I forgot about that.
And so we just sort of fed off each other, and we had 20 minutes of good stuff, and it was just, there was like a magic dust to it.
You had it, and you were like, something about this one feels more of a different quality than anything else I've done.
Well, yes, but not only that, I hadn't done anything. I was only in my early 20s, so I was like, this was the first thing.
Did people react positively?
Yeah, so the other people I was training at the BBC, other people watched it, and they were sort of, we watched it in a kind of group session. They would show me their little videos about the barbershop or whatever, and then I showed them this, and they were silent, and I was like, oh, I guess it's not good, but they were like, fuck me.
Oh,
great.
Like,
wow.
And they knew it was fake.
They knew it was fake, and they knew it was good. And someone, and it started getting passed around. Like,
Yeah.
I think supposedly the South Park kind of
Yeah.
guys did something
Yes.
early on that got passed around. It was the
They
same.
made like a Christmas video. Or
yeah,
something.
and people would call and be like, "We'll
This
put
is
it on the air."
99, 2000.
About 99, 2000, yeah. And people would say, "We'll put it on the air as it is." And again, though, but like you were saying, it was like, no, let's do a pod.
No,
Let's
I'm
make
Billy
a proper show
Wilder.
here, yeah. And we went in the end. We went into the BBC, and we were going to write and direct it, and we'd never done anything, and they didn't know who we were. And the BBC said, "Why should we let you direct this?" And I remember saying, "I might be the next Orson Welles." And in my mind, it wasn't arrogant. It was, we don't know. He was young and he just came out of nowhere and was brilliant. So maybe that's me.
Yes.
But it wasn't. It really was not meant to be arrogant. It was meant to be, give us a chance.
What do you think the secret sauce of you and Ricky is? Meaning, what's he bring? What do you bring? If you don't mind divulging,
Well, I
or if you
think
don't mind talking
at
about
that
it.
moment in time, I had a sort of,
Because that's what you just said is big, and I'm not saying Ricky didn't want it or any of that stuff. I'm just saying I'm advocating for the yous and I's of the world, where it's like, no, that's a big thing to bring to a show.
well, I think what I had back in those days was I was very laser focused, and I was interested in the mechanics of storytelling. I was interested in the plotting and structure.
Joseph
and,
Campbell.
well, even without necessarily knowing all the kind of reference points, I think I'd studied film at university, and so I'd sort of picked films and TV apart to see how it worked. And so I kind of felt like even though I wasn't experienced, I just was interested in that stuff, Whereas I think Ricky at that time had a much more kind of instinctive sort of comic blah, kind of, he would just blur out, fantastic, funny stuff.
Like
and it
a
was,
scene where something happens, or a
like
conflict,
an idea, but it would be about corralling that idea and how do we slot that into a bigger story, and how do we plant a seed for that earlier that pays off later? And all those all the kind of structural storytelling, which again I'm much better at now, and I'm more advanced and I have more language around that stuff. But at the time, and I look back on the show now, and I think some of it's a little unrefined in that. But I think the documentary style excuses a lot.
Yeah.
But so I think that was what the alchemy was at that time, was that there was a sort of raw, untapped comic energy in
Did
Ricky,
you
and
guys
that sort of-
appreciate what the other was bringing? Meaning, was he kind of like, fucking Steven wants, okay, how do I have to, and were you
maybe
like,
sometimes,
or
maybe
was you like, well, and then you'll just do anything?
I don't know. I think it was quite. I just think we were so kind of just enjoying the process of it. We were just sort of so in the trenches that we just never stopped to think about it.
Yeah.
it just was what it was.
And it's difficult. It's a difficult job, meaning making 6 episodes or 6 and 6.
Well, particularly because in the UK you don't have the writer's room, you don't have the larger team of 12 or something writers, so you're doing it yourself, and you each other is the only sort of arbiter of the script, really. And there were times where there'd be something he wanted that I thought we shouldn't, and vice versa, and we might kind of bat that around for a while. But on the whole, it was just it's just an enjoyable process.
That's great.
Yeah.
And so the thing about having a big personality like Ricky, and being able to say like, no, man, like it.
Yeah, well, I think we made a decision, a kind of mutually agreed decision, that we wouldn't put anything in the show that the other one didn't like or didn't approve of. We sort of had a veto.
Yeah.
So that helped. Because there was no sort of there was no sort of pulling rank.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
There was a quote about Radiohead that I would always tell Dave, and it was true in our case as well. Radiohead said that Radiohead is the UN, but Tom York is the United States. Which is like, yeah, I get it. I'm in the UN, but like, if I don't, I'm gonna go rogue.
You're right.
And I always felt like with Dave, or if I'm writing for anybody that's on camera, they're the one who has to jump out of the plane.
That's right. That's right.
So, like, look, man, if you don't, I can pack the shoot all in front. If you're uncomfortable, then let's change it.
That's right. That's
and
right.
I think you have to.
But there's a very memorable sequence in the British version that was much loved in the UK, where Ricky's character does a sort of absurd dance in an attempt to sort of upstage someone else. And we did it, and it was very funny, and Ricky just kind of went with it and was great, and just sort of, it was hilarious. But what in the editing room he just was like, this is too silly, this is too absurd. I think we should cut this out.
Who pitched it initially?
I think it was one of those things where when we were in the writing room, Ricky was goofing around doing some silly dance just for laughs, and I was like, well, we have to find a way to put this in. Yeah. So then it's like it's like I said, it's the construction of how do we what can we do to construct a reason why he's dancing like this, and but then he looked at it in the editing room. He's like, this is too much. It's too broad. It's too silly, and I really had to strong arm him on that one. That was like, no, this is you've got to put this is gold dust. It's
funny because you'd be mortified if people rejected it.
Yes.
Meaning if it came out and people were like, did you see this hackery?
Right.
And I don't even know if Ricky or a Dave would understand, like, dude, I feel so awful. As bad as you feel, I feel almost as bad because I forced you into it.
Yeah. Well, again, I mean, he obviously, in the end, he came around.
But
I think it was that sometimes there's something that's just too funny.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I'll take the insults. I'll take the critics going, they did.
Yeah.
Because, like, I don't care because there's sometimes there's things where it's like particularly physical comedy.
But it's they're taking a risk.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And it's not clever. It's not that you can't hide.
Yeah.
Other than like, no, I just thought it'd be funny to break dance.
I think that the reason we got away with it is because of that construction, the work we did beforehand to get to justify it in the show.
That's awesome. Just hit it. Don't you want me to feel good? Subscribe.